I'm attorney Phil Jusino, and this is the Phil Jusino Show coming at you from Strathmore Studios. This show is brought to you by Big Belly Barbecue in Smithtown, the best barbecue on Long Island. If you missed the show, you can see it again on Facebook Live and also on my YouTube channel, the Phil Jusino podcast. And also this show is seen on television on Thursdays at 10 p.m., channel 115. This show will air January 11th. I got a great guest in the studio. Her name is Barbra Williams. I've known Barbra for many, many years. She coached my son. She coached a daughter. She coached my daughter's boyfriend, his brother, you name it. Hundreds of players, skaters that are now in the NHL. She coached for the Islanders, and she coached the Jersey Devils. It's going to be a great show. And I was joking, and Barbra, welcome aboard.
Nice to be here.
Like I said, I've known her for many, many years. I first saw you when I was a little kid. I used to skate at Royal Ice Rink, which became Superior Ice Rink.
Right.
And I used to watch you because you weren't my instructor, but I'd watch you. And I'd kind of do some of the things you told the other skaters to do. And then years later, you coached my son, Dan, who's in the producer's chair now, and my daughter, Jacqueline, who played for the Lady Islanders. And I joked around with you. I said, you know what? You have so many great stories, and your life has been amazing. We could do a 4-hour show, and you'd still have something to say at the end of the show.
That's true.
So let's get started. First question I have to ask you is, when you started skating, how old were you?
5 years old.
Okay. And
figure skating.
Figure skating. Okay. So where did you live back then?
I lived in Manhasset, Long Island.
And you wanted to be a figure skater?
Yes. I saw Sonia Henney on television, who was a young blonde, 13 years old, winning the championship in Finland. And I wanted to be just like her. And I told my parents, one day I'm going to be famous, just like her. And my parents said, yes, Barbara, yes. And I said, no, I'm serious. I'm going to be on television, the radio. I'm going to be in newspapers. And my parents just humored me.
Well, you were right, just not figure skating. So how did you make the transition? So you got figure skates.
Yes, I figure skated my whole life, figure skating shows, but I loved speed. So one day I put my racing skates on, black racing skates.
The long ones?
Yeah, the big long ones. And I'm telling you, I took right off, and I loved the speed. So I would practice at Caniac Park on Long Island. In back of the men, they had a pack, like 10 men,
right.
And I would be the last one, but I would keep up with them. And they helped me so much with wearing the black skates and the speed. So later on, of course, that helped me with hockey.
But so did you actually get into hockey itself, playing on a hockey team?
No.
How come you didn't make that transition? You seem
no,
to like
I never played hockey.
Okay.
When I was director of the figure skating school at Rackham Rink, I used to go in very early in the morning and work with very advanced skaters. And they had 3 rinks there. And one rink, I would always see Bobby Nystrom by himself, practicing edges and turning like a figure skater. And one morning, I got the guts to go up and said, Bobby, could I talk to you for a minute? I said, what are you doing? You're doing figure skating moves. I'm watching you do 3 turns, back crossovers. He said, I really believe in working on my edges. I want to be a better skater, Barbara. And he said, I did teach with the woman Laura Stam, and now we're apart, and maybe you could work with me. And I said, oh, of course.
Now, what year was that?
That was like 1977, 76. And I said, of course I could work with you. And I'm like, oh, my God, what the hell do I know about hockey? So I just left that. I just let him skate. And I went in the pro shop. I said, give me a pair of hockey skates. I want to see if I could skate. Mm-hmm. So I got a pair of hockey skates, and I started that day practicing. Right. because I wasn't sure I'd be able to do it. So the next day, he said, "Are you ready?" I said, "Well,
Wow.
I'm not ready yet, but just give me another 2 days. I'm going to work on some drills with the hockey skates."
That's amazing.
It was a different feeling, and then we started working together.
That's amazing.
And
It's almost like a Seinfeld episode. You go up to a great hockey player, and you've never really done that kind of thing before, and
yeah,
next thing you know, you're training the guy.
it was, and all my figure skating coaches are like, "Are you out of your mind? Are you crazy?" No, I'm not crazy. I know what I'm doing. I know edges. I know how to teach someone, the figure skating moves, but I didn't call it figure skating. I called it power skating.
Right.
Didn't want to call it figure skating. And Bobby and I worked very hard. And before I knew it, I had another player work with me. And then I had maybe 3 or 4 players. And this is how it started. And then I'll never forget this. One morning, I went to Racket and Rink. There were 100 cars. And I saw NBC, CBS. I saw I said, gee, God, they probably made a big
Mm-hmm.
trade. So I went around the back of the rink, put my skates on, got on the ice, waiting for the players to come. All of a sudden, the doors opened, and like 100 people came at me on the ice. I'm like, like, what the heck is going on?
Wow.
And then Al Arbor got on the ice. I said, "Al, what's going on here?" They were taking my picture. They were trying to all talk to me at
And you still didn't
once.
know what was going on.
No, I didn't know it. Al said, "Oh, we have a big surprise for you, Barbara." I went, "Really? And what's that?" Because I was like very nervous at that point. He said, "Barbara, we named you the first female skating
That's
coach
amazing.
in the National Hockey League." I never
That
thought,
was a well kept secret. You had no idea.
I never
They
thought,
all knew you didn't know.
but I never thought that would happen being a woman back then. I mean, I was the first, but I never thought that would happen. I
Mm.
thought I would just continue to train the players, but to be the first and to be recognized like that night,
That's amazing.
I was on every television station. That
Hmm.
night, 4, 2, 11, 9. It was like amazing. And the next day, every newspaper, they were coming to my house to take my pictures. It was like such a whirlwind that I was on. But to this day, I'm still on that whirlwind.
Look, and even to this day, it is a male dominated sport, like many sports, but hockey, male dominated. But I think it goes to the greatness of the Islanders because they saw something in you that you could help the team win. It didn't matter if you were a 5 foot something blonde headed woman as opposed to some Canadian that was going to teach them. You were going to help them win.
That's true. But Al Arbor really believed in me. He said, "Barbara, I see what you're doing with Bobby and some of the players, and you are really helping them skate better. I see it. And we will win the cup with you helping us." He believed in me so much. He was the greatest coach. I mean, I just love that man. And
I met him once. Very nice,
what
very
what a
nice man.
wonderful man, and his whole family was so great.
His granddaughter Jackie played ice hockey. Jackie
I trained
Barber,
Jackie.
right? And she played with my daughter Jackie. They had an awesome team. I
Really?
remember one time I was part of a conversation where Jack. Remember when Al Arbor was brought back to coach one more time, so he
Yes.
could like 5 decades,
Yeah.
and Jackie and my Jackie and the whole team was up. I think it was Albany or Rochester in a tournament, and Jackie was our best scorer, Jackie Arbor. So she had to go to the Coliseum, and I said we got to get her back. They flew her. Charles Wang flew her to the Coliseum. She walked on the ice that night
Oh my
with Al
God.
Arbor as his
I
granddaughter,
never knew
and
that.
they flew her back up to I think it was Rochester, which is amazing because Al Arbor played for the Rochester Americans,
Yeah.
and his picture is up there in the arena. So when Jackie, imagine that you're a young 13, 14, 15-year-old hockey player, and your grandfather is up there. He played for the Wings, but at the time
I
he
know.
played minor league hockey. Amazing.
She had such respect for her grandfather, and I trained her brother too, as well. I trained both of them.
Who didn't you train? It seems like
No, I've trained everybody. I
wow.
swear. I meet people in the supermarket. If I'm walking on the beach, I meet people. It's like because I've been doing it for so many years.
Sure. Now, what year was it? 77, 78 when they made you an official coach?
77.
Okay. And then they won 79, 80 was
Yeah.
the first year they won the cup.
That was the most amazing party. for 3 days. It was a party,
Mm.
but it was so amazing. And they had a 12-foot screen, and they kept
Mhm.
playing Bobby Nystrom's goal the whole night.
At 7-11, Game 6 against the Flyers from John Tonelli, and that won in their first of 4 cups. A lot of people forget they went to 5 straight cups. Edmonton beat them at the last, but they beat Edmonton 4 games to nothing.
Yeah.
And in their run. It was an amazing run. But how did you feel? So you're at the arena. Where they won at the Coliseum. Thank God they did, because so they go back to Game 7 at the Flyers. Kate Smith sings the national anthem, and who knows what was going to happen,
That's for sure.
right? Because they never lost when Kate Smith sang the national,
No.
not the national. God bless America. God bless America. So you're at the game, right? It's overtime. They win. Where are you seated?
I'm downstairs where the players walk out, and Bobby Nystrom walked right on the cement
Mm-hmm.
and walked right to me. And he said, Barbara, and he gave me a hug. He said, thank you so much for helping me.
Wow.
You've done so much for me, and I wanted to thank you. And I was like in awe. I was in shock that he would do that. And then everyone was in the locker room with the
I can
champagne,
imagine.
you know.
Yeah, because the franchise, I think, started in like 73, 74. So it wasn't an old organization. It wasn't like
No,
the
it was
Rangers
young.
that was like one of the original 8 teams. This was the new kids in town, in a
Right.
sense. And they had some good success. Um, the rink in Riverhead is named after, I'm drawing a blank on his name for a second, the great Islander,
Eddie
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 Westfall. Eddie
Westfall.
Westfall. And Eddie was there early on. He wasn't there when they made their run, but he was instrumental in bringing along the
He used
organization.
when he saw me, going on the ice, he would look at me. He would run in the locker room and hide. And
Why?
I'd yell, Eddie! And you go, no, no, I'm busy, I'm busy. And he'd run and lock the door.
Well, he didn't want you to train him?
I saw him last week at the Calverton when they
Right.
opened it. I said, why did you run away from me? He said, you think I'm crazy? I was in my 30s. You would give me a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I wasn't going to die that young. So, and I knew you would kick my ass,
Mhm.
me, on the ice. So when I saw you on the ice, he said, I always had something to do. Because he said, I wasn't getting any Clark Gillies, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
He would go the other way too. The both of them. I'm like, Al, you have to tell those guys to get on the ice with me. He said, Barbara. He said, I left it up to you if they want to skate with you. But those two, Gillies and Arbor, Gillies and Westfall, they ran.
Right. Now, and I know we've spoken about this, they had respect for you. They knew you were there to do a job. It didn't matter, again, that you were a woman. You were a coach, just like any other coach. And you were there 2 years, and then they won their first cup. So
They had great respect for me, except one player. But I don't think we want to talk about him.
okay.
But he would come into Racket and Rink and open the Daily News and say, this whole page is about you. And I'm the one that puts the puck in the net.
Mhm.
And you get all the press.
Really?
And I said, well, I didn't ask them to give me that press, you know. So he always gave me a hard time, this particular person.
Wow. I'm curious.
Only one, though.
Mhm.
Only one.
That was amazing. So you coached the Islanders for how many years? Skating coach.
I worked with them a few of the cups.
Okay.
But I also traveled to New Jersey
And then you started. My
and
dad used to
start-
bump into you
and
on the
started
train.
working with the players in New Jersey, with the Jersey Devils. That was a long trip.
I can imagine.
And I had to leave like 4:30 in the morning just to get there on the ice early. But a lot of the Islanders were there.
Oh,
Again,
really?
yeah. Trottier's brother was there, and Gary Howard was there.
I met
Some
many
of the
years ago, sure.
Islanders were there. So it was a good transition, but it was hard for me, all the traveling.
Wow. So at some point, well, you still had your students, right? The young
Yes.
kids, and they were from little kids to kids in college, right?
Yes.
And I asked you this question. You probably lost track. How many, was it hundreds of your students made it to the National Hockey League?
Since 1977, a couple hundred.
That's amazing.
Yes, a lot made it to the USHL, and they got Division I college,
Mhm.
and then they got drafted.
So is it fair to say, though, that your affiliation, let's say with the Islanders and the Devils, really made you a commodity that players, or parents, I should say, wanted their kid to skate with you?
Yes, my hockey schools were filled. My clinics,
Camps.
My clinics were filled, my camps. I had people calling me from all over the place to come to Boston, come to Chicago. They all want. I'm only one person, and they
Hmm.
all wanted me then.
Now you said you knew Herb Brooks and
Yes, very
his
well.
wife. He sadly
I
passed
trained his
away.
son.
Okay, how did you meet him?
I was in Connecticut doing the Greenwich Skating Club. They had a lot of hockey people, women too, and I was training them, and he was there.
Was this after the gold medal win or not?
No, it was
Was
before.
Oh, before? Okay.
Yeah, we got to be good friends. He said, "I really want you to work with my son, Barbara." So I started working with his son, and I got to know his wife really well, Patty. And they just Herb Brooks was the greatest guy, really.
Well, that was, and you got to Michael Ruzioni, who was the
Yes,
captain of that team, who
yeah,
scored
we
the
got to
winning
do
goal against the Russians.
we got to do a hockey camp together. That was fun, But again, the respect was always there. I never had to prove myself to another player or a
Right.
coach because the respect of being the first female coach in the NHL, I always got that respect, even to this day. So
Okay.
I'm happy about that.
I'm looking at a photograph. Your picture is up on the jumbotron of UBS Arena,
Right.
and it was an Islander game. Obviously, are they playing the Devils?
Yes, we
Yes, they
played the
are.
Devils,
Yes.
but they told me that night, don't mention the Devils because they trained the Islanders. So I
Right.
didn't mention I
Is it
trained
my
them.
producer? Is that picture up? Okay. So tell us a little bit about that night.
That night was so amazing for me. Um, John Ladaki, the owner, gave me his box that night so my family could sit in the box, and we had filet mignon and mashed potatoes on our own
You didn't call
bar.
me.
It was amazing. And then um, when they put up 5 different pictures up on the
Hmm.
screen, but then I had 16,000 people standing up calling Barbara, Barbara.
That must be amazing.
Oh my God, my
Wow.
heart was pounding. And then they showed my picture up there. It was one of the best nights of my life. I mean, after that, I did leave. I had this nut come up to me and say, "Will you sign your name on my arm?"
Yeah.
I said, "You want me to sign my name on your arm?" He says, "Yeah, I want to tattoo it."
Hmm.
I said, "No, I'm not signing my name on your arm." But I went down the back stairs because it was so overwhelming. I had to leave. I had all these people coming at me that I didn't know. So I went with my nephew and we
Hmm.
left. But that was amazing.
Wow.
And all my students were there, all of them. A couple of hundred of my students, my past students were there.
And the Islanders are up at the time, 1-0. Um,
And they beat the Devils
Pretty
that
amazing.
night.
I got to say, I started telling you the story before. The Islanders, they were, at least that I got to know a little bit, were a great bunch of guys. I
They were.
remember going to games. I met a couple. One time I sat where the wives were sitting, and there were a couple of Islanders that had been injured. They were there. But one time I lost a bet as to who sings the national anthem. Was it Robert Merrill or Joe Dors? I lost the bet, but Father Dan, who you know,
Yes.
chaplain of the Islanders, brought me to the game. And at the end of the game, he brought me down, and I got to get a picture. And I haven't. Before you leave, I'll show you all the Islanders: uh, Bobby Nystrom, Dennis Potvin, uh, you name it. And the amazing thing was that was the night that Chico Resch was traded. So Resch and Smith didn't come out of the locker room.
Oh
So I got to meet
God.
Bossy. That was another name. It was Mike Bossy and Brian Trottier. And I'm waiting. Pretty much everybody came out. I'm like, where's Billy Smith? I was a big Chico Resch fan. As a
I
goalie,
love Chico.
right, even though Billy Smith was money, when the playoffs came, Resch only won one cup and then he got traded. But I wanted to meet him. And they didn't come out. All of a sudden, Billy Smith comes out of the locker room, and nobody knew the trade had happened yet.
Right.
So Billy Smith comes out and he says to me, "Hey kid, what are you doing down here?" And I said, "Well, I'm with the." I started to stutter. I'm like, "I'm with the priest. I just met the guy." So he says, "Come with me." Billy Smith grabs my arm by the tricep, and he says, "Come with me." So in other words, to lead me out of the place.
Yeah.
At that moment, Father Dan comes running down and says, "Billy, he's with me." Billy Smith didn't even apologize. He just let go of me, and
I
he
know.
went
He
about his
was he was
business.
kind of a strange man
I heard he was a tough. You
and
don't want
hard
to.
to get close to.
Yeah,
I never even talked to him.
he was that very
No, and
stern,
I never worked with
and you didn't
him.
want to go near his crease in the middle of a game. But so with all those students, you said you call power skating, and when you have a student like my son was one of your Jackie, what do you try to instill in one of your students that comes to you and says, "I want to be a better skater"? What do you do?
I tell them always think positive. If you think that you can make the NHL, believe it. Believe it. Most kids don't believe it. They sabotage themselves. They don't think they
Negative
can be
thinking.
that good to make it. Now I have kids going to the USHL. I tell them, you could do it. I believe in you. You work hard. If I see that you don't work hard, I will never say those words to you because I know they're not going anywhere. But if they think positive about themselves, about their workouts, off the ice and on the ice,
Hmm.
they have a chance to get somewhere. And all the players that I put in the NHL, I always preach positive thinking. That's why my school is called Power. My book is More Power to Skating. I really believe in that word. My other book, Positive Power.
Right.
I read the book from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking.
Sure.
I have read that book 1,000 times because there's nothing that I can't do if I put my mind to it and my
So,
heart.
so let me ask you this: a lot of talented kids out there, right? And you skate, you coach, obviously, a lot of the talented kids. What do you see separates? And you started touching on the positive aspect, but when you coach a kid, you see something in them, not just talent, but attitude, that
Yes,
either will elevate them to the next level or
yes.
sabotage them. And
They
you
a
see that
lot
early on?
sabotage themselves, a lot. But you're right about that. If they really, really believe that they can make it and work hard, but if I see they're not working hard, I know it's just a dead end street.
Right. And you said hundreds made it to the NHL. So many other kids got to play in college,
Yes, Division
which
One.
which is a privilege. It is a fun thing. I got to play with club, but I got to play in college, and it was fun. It's something I'll take with me the rest of my life. I didn't play in the NHL, but those were great memories. And you elevated their game so they could play for Michigan or Maine or one of the great hockey schools.
Yes, club hockey now is excellent. Even probably when you
There were some
skated,
competitive games we had.
but I like to see. I'm so happy to see boys get college scholarships and get into the USHL. It just it makes my whole career worth that I've had. Not so much the NHL, just getting that college scholarship
Right.
and getting in that USHL, the and
And
prep
feeling good
school.
about themselves.
Yes, and they've always invited me to their parties. And I told them, when you make the NHL, I get
Hmm.
$50,000. Don't forget. And they send me flowers. So what happened to the $50,000? They said, no, we sent you flowers.
Now, some of the guys that have made it, they come back, they call you, they let you know, so you follow them.
Yeah, I'm
And
close to them. We have a friendship. To this day, I talked to Dave Lewis a few weeks ago, and Bobby Bourne, and
I know those names.
we're friends, and we'll always be friends.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you also coach females, like my daughter. How is that different? Is it different? I shouldn't say
That
how is
is
it.
very strange to me
Okay.
because I was asked that question when they named me the first female coach. You ever think there'll be women in the National Hockey League
That's
or
going to be tough.
women's teams? I went, absolutely not. It's a men's sport, and it will never be a
They
woman's
had that
sport.
goalie Rayume, the French one. I think it was like in preseason, but it
Yeah,
is very tough for a woman to
very
break it.
hard
To
to
break.
break in. But now there are over
They just
100,000
started a
girls.
professional league now. I think 8 teams.
Yes, my Dana Trevino, my student, she's on in Boston, semi-pro team. But I never thought that would happen. I was honest, my feelings about it. And every year I saw more and more women and more young girls.
Sure.
And I mean that I'm happy about that. But when I train a women's team, sometimes there's a wall there, which is very strange.
What do you
But
mean?
a woman as myself to a man teaching him is very positive. I would have one or two of the players come up to me and say, I'm glad you're a woman because I could tell you my weaknesses. Because if you were a guy, I would not be telling you my weaknesses.
Really?
So a woman to a man or a man to a woman is much more beneficial.
But you know what, too? Even though they're not going to make it, in all likelihood, to the National Hockey League, they get scholarships to prep schools. They get
Yes,
a lot of them
yes,
scholarships to college, and many of them.
yes.
See, sadly, well, even for boys, the really good players have to, in a sense, go to prep schools because there's no high level other than maybe this, the travel programs, right?
Right.
So when you get a kid that's very good, he's going to go to Choate or he's going to go to one of those schools,
Northwood, Choate.
right?
But I tell the boys, even when they're little, you keep those marks up.
Sure.
90s,
Because you
100s.
got to do well in those prep
I don't want
schools.
to see 70s or 80s. I want
Hmm.
to see the high marks because they want to know now, the prep schools,
Right.
what are your
Let
marks?
me have that comment. And that's a good thing because sometimes you see like certain schools that say football players, they get passed along just so they can play football. But when you go
Yes.
to these prep schools, they expect you to make the grade in
Oh,
the classroom.
yes, definitely.
That's why you see some of these guys that play in the NHL. They came from Harvard. They came from Yale.
That's true.
Smart, smart guys. Let me see some of the comments. My sister Lisa's watching. Best skating instructor of all time, Fred Forgione. Tom Landrigan. Barbara looks great. She's an icon. Ed said hello from Atlanta. Jeff Provato said the best. What are her thoughts about movies like Youngblood and Slapshot? That was a friend of mine. He's a little bit of a wise guy, but he's in Philly. Good guy, Jerry Ehrlich. When you see those kinds of movies, and it's funny. I'm gonna go with that right now.
Do I laugh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it serious? No.
Okay. It's a movie.
It's just a fun movie.
Although Slapshot was patterned after John Brophy, who used to be the Ducks coach, the player, and it was like the expression was, "I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out."
He was a very strange man.
Brophy?
But yeah, definitely. But that slap shot,
I used to
I,
go to those games as
I
a
was
5 year
with
old.
like 10 friends, and all we did was laugh. Just it was very funny.
But hockey years ago was like that. The fighting, a lot of,
Oh
especially
my
in the lower
God,
leagues,
the blood.
constant.
The people used to go just to see the blood spattered,
Right.
and they were disappointed if there wasn't a fight.
You don't see as many. You still see them, but there
No,
aren't
you
as many
hardly
now.
no you hardly see any fights now, and they don't want to do that because they're going to have to pay a big price if they get thrown out of the game
Right.
or they draw blood. Those days are gone.
Mhm.
But people did really go to games to see fights.
I just want to go back. Like you coached my daughter Jackie, and I think she listened to you probably better than Danny did. I remember you used to go at it with Danny when he was skating around. He was younger. Jackie was a little more mature, but you used to go at it, and comments were made. But Jackie, you told her to do something, she did it. That was my recollection because I used to watch them. Danny was a little bit ornery sometimes.
I like to say I switched to goalie.
He became a goalie. So you made him into a goalie. No, kidding. Let me just say, Mike Landy said, hi, Barbara. Today's game is much faster than 30 years ago. Tom Landrigan. Power skating and several rule changes brought that about. Any comments
You see
about
the
that?
Carolina Hurricanes, they fly. They fly. And O'Connor, he flies. You got to be quick now, quick and fast. When I started teaching power skating, I would teach a long stride, very long. Now you got to go like a bat out of hell, right from the start.
So what do you think it is? Like when they always talk about improvements in the game, equipment, nutrition, teaching. Why do you think the guys, let's say today, are faster than some of the greats of yesteryear?
Because the drills that they're working on and the coaching staff works on fast, quick takeoffs. And the whole game has almost changed because the speed is phenomenal now with most of the players. But they work on speed. I watch them. They work on speed.
How about the equipment, like the skates of years ago, the old Bauer or whatever? How do those skates compare to the
Now
skates of
they're
today?
$800 and $1,000. The good
Hmm.
skates, and that's what kids pay.
I
Their
think it makes a
parents,
difference.
the parents picked a very expensive sport
Oh,
to
absolutely.
put their child in. Not only the lessons, but just like I said, the skates are $800,000, and all of the equipment, the helmet now.
Things
You
are lighter. Like I remember the goalie equipment. I used to have leather goalie pads. They get wet. They got heavy.
and they're so high now. I remember them so wide and short. Things have changed, but it's a very expensive sport.
Absolutely. But do you think that the better skates, of course, it helps them, but do you think it makes that much of a difference?
Yes, the better steel. Yes, it does. It makes a big difference.
Okay. Oh, my dad said hi. Let's see. Going to listen to the rest later. Sherry Stronigan. And it says, great show. Very nice. So, in addition to being a well-known skating instructor, you're also an author. You also have a
Yes.
movie. We got 20-something minutes left. We got to talk about that because everybody, like I said, you don't need an introduction, but a lot of people don't know that aspect of your life. How many books did you write?
I've written 4 books and 2 more coming out. My first book, More Power to Your Skating. My first book I wrote with Stan Fischler's
Oh, sure, an announcer.
deceased wife,
Right.
Shirley. She died of breast cancer, God rest her soul. But we were very close, and she helped me with my first book, and I sold 65,000 copies. My first book. And then my second book, Positive Power, I've done very well. I put a lot of pictures in there, and I put a section in for the goalies. I covered everything. I also covered at the beginning of the book. It was funny. I was teaching a men's team. They came out on the ice. I said, "Look, let's get this straight. No cigarettes, no drinking beer, no going out on Friday nights, having a great time." And then they all looked at each other and walked off the ice. I couldn't believe it. And they were all laughing in the locker room.
Did you coach them?
They came out.
Okay.
They said, "We didn't like your lecture, Barbara."
Okay.
I said, "Well, I was serious. You want to be serious? You can't be drinking
You're
beer
tough. I
and
gotta
going
say.
out on Friday nights, you know?"
Hmm.
So then I made them crawl off the ice. And they said, "We're going to think about this session next week."
Quick question: goalies. Right? I'm a goalie. Did you train goalies in power skating as well?
I did not train when I first started. I only trained 1 or 2 because I thought they're in the net. They really don't have to work on the edges.
But it's still important.
Now I train 20 goalies. Keith Kincaid just signed with the Devils, and they brought him down to
Mundinger's
the
another one.
Fontaine. Mundinger
They played
went
ball with
with the
his
Solar
father.
Bears in Florida, and they put him down on the farm team, which he had 2 shutouts. But both of those guys, I'm not used to looking up
He's
like
6'8".
6'8". I'm
Mundinger.
like, you're not listening to me.
And with skates on, he's
They're
close
even
to
taller.
7 feet.
No, but goalies now work very hard on their skating. They not only want to be proficient in the net, they want to skate like a bat out of hell. So they work with me.
I remember when I played, we were expected. You know how like they end to end blue line, red line. We were
Yes.
expected to keep up with, and I was a pretty good skater because I played out early on in my playing days when I was like 5 and so on. So I
Right.
was a pretty good skater. But you're right. As a goalie, think about it. You got to make the transition. You got to skate backwards. A guy's coming in a breakaway. If you can't skate backwards fast, you're dead.
No,
What are you going
it's
to
true.
park your
And
butt in the net?
and I work on all those things with goalies in public sections, behind the cones. We work on the back skating and coming out of the net quick and going to the board quick. And so I'm very happy that more goalies are. And Ron Petronelli, your friend,
Yes.
all the goalies work with him in the net, which is something I don't do. He cuts down angles and shows them how to cut it
Sure.
down. And he's very good, but I'm better.
Okay. Good. Good. So you were saying you wrote some books. Now, fiction, I know some of them, positive thinking and all
Well,
that.
those two, of course, were having to do
Sure.
with hockey. I wrote A Christmas Tale, TAIL, with the
Oh,
Brooklyn Rink Rats.
okay.
These are rats that live in Little Italy that come out at night when the humans leave. Carmine, Guido, Vinny, Rocco, they all live in
You wrote that a
Little
while ago, right?
I did,
I think you
but
told me
I'm
about
coming out now in a few months with an 8x12 children's book. I made the rats colored. I
that. So
colored
I hope
them.
you show us Italians in a positive light.
Oh, I did. You beat the Canadians at the end of that
Okay.
book.
Good.
That's a very good book. But I want it to be bigger, and I want more colored pictures in it. And then, believe this or not, I wrote a murder mystery. I'm like, don't ask me how I did it. It's called Mags 52, The Ghost of New York. And it's about DEA agents,
Wow.
cops, Russians, murder, but the ending is amazing. I really feel like someone wrote it through me, like a DEA agent
That's amazing. Wow.
wrote it through me. I told my priest that, and he said, Barbara, you're working too hard. I said, I never could write a book like that. It's an amazing, amazing, it's made into a script, the book, but it's an amazing story.
Can you get it on like Amazon?
Yes, you can get it on all my books. You can get on Amazon.
Okay, good.
That was
I
amazing.
got to check that out because I'm a criminal defense attorney, so that might be right up my alley.
Oh, you would absolutely love
If
my
they
book.
make the movie, who's going to play me? No, I'm only kidding. I want to go back quickly. Well, let's do this. Because we don't want to run out of time. We got time. A movie's being made.
My movie.
What is the name of it?
It's called Cold as Ice. It should have been out 2 years ago, but the writer's strike pushed my movie back
Okay.
almost 2 years. And then after the writer's strike, the actors and actresses went on strike. I'm like, God, I
Bad
can't
luck.
I can't win here. But I did get the final script. We're set to go. They'll probably go to one of the NHL teams, the Islanders or Oilers or someone, to back my movie. And then the hard part is to find someone to play me.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
I'm a strange woman. And it's going to be hard to find
I
somebody.
can't even think who would play you.
I said, you better dub my voice in when they're talking. Because there's a very nice, soft side to me, but there's a tough side to me. I have to be.
Gotta be.
When
Talky.
I started working with the Islanders, I would go, "Come on, boys, right leg, left leg," and then they said, "Barbara, you want us to listen to you? You have to be loud." So from that day till today,
You're allowed.
I'm screaming, "Move your butt, let's go!" So I yell every day.
I remember that voice because I used to be in the stands when you would be yelling at my kids and other players to get their butts moving.
Yeah, now I never stop yelling. I've
Mhm.
been yelling ever since. But God has really given me a wonderful gift to this day because I skated all day today, and it's amazing that I have this gift still.
How many hours on average, let's say an average week, how many hours are you on the ice?
A week, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 22 hours a week.
On the ice?
Yes.
Wow.
But I'm so used to it that it goes fast. And I have different players every 20 minutes, which is good.
Now, what rinks do you cover? You in Dix Hills?
I'm at Dix Hills, and I'm at Superior Ice Rink
Okay.
in Kings Park. And now I'll be at the Calverton rink, the
Sure.
new rink, in it's exit 68 where Calverton is.
Right. And the outdoor one was dedicated to you.
Yes, I couldn't believe they actually dedicated a rink to me.
It was funny. My dad calls me and he says that he thought it was the main rink. I said, no, I think that's Eddie Westfall.
That's Eddie Westfall's rink. He was there. And then when they dedicated that rink to me, I said, "See, you're not the only one, Eddie. I have a rink named after me." We both laughed.
Mhm.
But
I got to check that out sometime.
yeah,
He said it's being run by the town,
yes,
and they're going to have hockey leagues just like they do in Superior Ice Rink
yes,
and the rinks.
and they have a lot of figure skating. Kim Donato is running the figure skating part. Jack Craig is running the hockey,
Jack.
and I trained both of them. And I'm happy that they have good people running Calverton. Peconic Hockey League put that together. It took 10 years, a lot of hard work with the Alberts who put that together. But
Mhm.
they won the bid for the NHL bubble, and it's a beautiful rink
You're going to get some kids out east that was too far for them to travel
to
like
go
to
the
the rinks.
rinks.
Now, are you going to have also quality travel teams like they do the Royals? Or
Yes,
the ones at the rinks?
eventually, yes. Peconic has 5 or 6 different teams, and eventually they will have the travel.
The house leagues, of course.
Yeah, I mean Rome wasn't built in a day, so
Right.
but it's a nice rink, and it's another rink that we need on Long Island.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And it also keep kids out of trouble. And then there'll be
Yes.
another generation of people like yourself that will want to teach these kids how to skate and coach and all that.
I train a few girls now, and I work with them, and they Dawn Sikorsky, she was a figure skating coach. I said, "You would make a great power skating coach." She said, "Really?" And now she's doing so well, and Kim Donato too.
I got a question. When you started in 77, you called it power skating. Was it ever called anything similar to that they were doing, let's say, in the 60s or 70s, training
No.
these kids?
No, there wasn't.
So
Well,
you're a
not that I
pioneer.
know of,
Right.
you know, but I thought that was the best scenario, that name. And I've kept that name in my hockey school.
It's a strong name. I like it.
Yeah, Positive Power is my hockey school. So I'm very happy about that. And the books I've sold with skating, there's the name Power is in there. So
Now, you also do clinics. You
yes,
also do camps. So give us like a, let's say the kids are off from school for a week in February or whatever. You might have a camp or a clinic. And how do those differ from your regular skating?
I would only do an hour without a clinic. My hockey school is all day. I bring in ECHL players,
Hmm.
and they're on the ice with them for 2 or 3 hours, and then they're on the ice with me for an hour straight. And then I bring in the police, the fourth precinct. They talk to the kids about drugs and alcohol.
You said you also speak about that too.
Yes,
Tell us a little. That's
I
very
go to
important.
colleges and grammar schools and high schools, and I speak to them about the effects of drugs and alcohol, going to a party and drinking, what will happen, and you have to be careful. And especially with the phone now, with the internet and
Sure.
everything, these kids have to be really careful.
Yeah, because a lot of the dumb stuff that, let's say, my generation did wasn't videotaped. Now, anything you do that's stupid, everybody walks around with a video camera in
It's
the phone,
true, and everybody sees everything.
and things get sent, and you can, blow up and become a virtual fool on
Yeah,
the internet just by doing something very
the
stupid.
police talk a lot about that, and I'm very happy that they give that time to the children. So, my hockey school I have at Superior the end of July this year. I'll probably have the flyers in another month, but it's a good school. It's a hard school, and it's a positive school. But getting back to my movie,
Yes. Hmm.
Cold as Ice, it will be out, I assume, the end of 2024. We finished the script, but I had a very hard life growing up. So, of course, they're going to make it PG-13 or R, which I didn't want, but they felt that would have to be.
So someone's going to have to play you as a young person as well.
Yes, a very young person, and then up to the 20s till the Islanders won the first cup.
Right. Interesting.
But it will be a positive movie for women to see, and they'll say, "Oh my God, if Barbara could live that kind of life and live through that, and look what happened to her. Look how great she became." They could believe in themselves.
It's funny because when I originally thought of you, I thought, man, was she lucky? But it wasn't luck. You if you didn't walk up, if you didn't have the courage to walk up to Bobby Nystrom, you wouldn't be sitting here.
No, but that was hard for me to go into
But you
that rink that
but you
morning.
did it.
But I did it because I say, "What the heck are you doing? I want to know."
And he was a gentleman.
He
He could
was.
have been like, leave me alone. And like maybe
No,
that
he
one
was.
person you said who wasn't as receptive,
Yeah.
but the team as a whole embraced you. And that had to
Yes.
make you feel great.
Well, because anything Al Arbor believed in, believe me, the team believed in, and he believed in
He
me
was a
so
great
much
coach.
that he helped me so much. Him and Bobby Nystrom.
And how about the other coaches? Because Arbor was the head coach, but there were other coaches. Did they warm up to you? And because
Yes.
you're, in a sense, one of them.
Yes, they did. Only because of Al Arbor saying this woman is going to help
So
our
even if they
team.
didn't want to initially, because of Al Arbor, they were going to toe the line and give you the respect you deserved.
Yeah, if I didn't have Al Arbor backing me up, I don't know how they would have, acted. But to this day, I have the respect, and that's the most important thing. And my movie will show women, especially women, where you can come from and what you can do if you believe in yourself.
It's a great message.
Yes.
Now, I want to just jump a little bit to, you said you got to meet Michael Ruzioni, who was the captain of the USA team, scored the winning goal against the Russians to get them to the gold medal. How did that come about?
He went to Racket and Ring to do a hockey school with two other coaches. And then he came up to me and
Now,
said,
what year would that have been about?
um,
After the gold medal win?
yes,
It had
after
to
the
be,
gold
right?
medal win. And then he came up to me and said, "We need somebody to do the skating part. So would you do that for us? We'll do the
Mm.
hockey, stick handling, shooting, passing, and could you do the skating?" And I said, "Yes, definitely." So that's how I got to know him.
Okay. Now, you watched the Olympics, and it's funny because people always say, "I remember watching that Russian game." Canadians were able to watch the USA Russian game. We weren't, not live. We saw
Right.
a tape. So people say, "I saw." You didn't, unless you were in Canada, but you saw the USA team play. How the heck did they beat the Russians? They had lost 10-3 2 weeks prior at the Garden, and you saw them skate. Did you think that they were going to be a contender
I did think
in
they
the early
would
games?
be a
You did.
contender, but I heard them in the locker room, and they were like, it was like, in the football game,
Sure.
we're gonna win. Yeah, I didn't hear you, and then they would yell it louder. They were so pumped up. By the time they got out of that locker room,
And they
they,
believe. Herb Brooks made them believe that
oh
they could win. And
yes,
it goes back to
yes,
what you said. If you don't see yourself doing it, it's not going to happen.
it's true. That is so true. And he believed in them that they could win. And that's all they needed because they went out of that locker room and they was like, we are going to win.
You know,
I just have goosebumps because it was amazing that they felt like
it's
that.
funny. I still remember where I was when I heard that USA beat Russia. I was in the movie theater in Comac, that strip mall,
Yeah.
and now Outback is in that, right? And I walked out, and someone said, "Oh, did you hear USA beat the Russians?" You know what my first response was? No, they didn't. I'm like, you're kidding me. Come on. USA,
Really?
because don't forget, 72, 74, I'm sorry, 72, 76. Actually, no. Actually, it was 68, 72, 76, and then 80. They finally won the gold medal. And the last time it was on American soil at Squaw Valley when in 1960 USA won the gold medal. And then the Russians just took over.
Yeah.
And then again, they beat them 10-3 right before the Olympics started. So the bar, in fact, Al Michaels and Ken Dryden called the game. Right? And if you listen to it, even in the movie, Dryden, I don't think thought for 1 second they could
That
win
they would
because
win.
they're going to go through a lot. They're going to be tested, and I don't think a lot of people would have bet on USA beating the
No,
Russians.
that's true. But they were very talented. They were talented skaters
Yeah.
and they were talented
He
hockey
built that
players.
team. He was a visionary because if you watch the movie, and I met Jim Craig and I spoke to him a little bit about it, it's he put that team together. It wasn't the best college players.
Right.
He had a system, and he wanted the best college players. That's in the movie, and I think it really happened in real life. There was supposed to be a week tryout, a week long, and like in a day, he knew who he wanted. And
Yep.
they're like, "What are you doing? What about this guy? What about that guy?" He says, "I got the right guys,"
No,
and he
he
was
knew.
right.
He knew.
He
He
was
had it
right.
all planned. And I'm so happy that he had that. That was an amazing
Yeah.
time.
In fact, that's a Jim Craig autograph. It's his Miracle on Ice, 1980 Olympic
Oh,
gold medal.
wow. That's a nice
I
picture.
met him. My daughter was in a hockey tournament. That's a very quick story. My daughter was in a hockey tournament. I think it was Massachusetts. And I'm in the parking lot and I see a car. It was a Mercedes. And the license plate said 1980, something like gold, USA. And I'm like, oh, maybe there's an Olympian here. So I go inside and all of a sudden through the lobby, because there were little, young girls all over the place, and it's Jim Craig. So I went up to him and I started talking. We had a nice conversation. At some point, I said, my son, who's back home, would love to talk to you. So I called, and Danny got on the phone. He had a nice little conversation with Jim Craig. And I remember when the conversation was over, I got to say it. Danny says, Dad, I got to tell him something. I said, what? So I almost handed him the phone. Good thing I didn't. I said, what do you want to tell him? He said, tell him I'm Micah Ruzzione's the biggest fan.
Oh,
So, but then Dan became a goalie later, so he appreciated the greatness of yeah, because Tradiak was like the best goalie in the world, but at that Olympic, uh,
it was amazing.
it was Jim
Amazing
Craig. Jim
time.
Craig was because Tradiak got knocked out. Remember, he let up that goal with
Yeah.
with no time on the clock in the second period, and that's why he said they just pulled the greatest goalie, the best goalie in the world, and but Jim Craig played on his head. The team played. They came every game they were behind. Even the first game against Sweden, they had to pull Jim Craig to tie the game up at 2-2, and he never.
Boy, you know your history.
I do. I do. I'm going to do a sports show after this. No, but it was amazing. Before when we first sat down, we were chatting, and I said to you, I'm going to ask you this question. How I know you don't plan on hanging up your skates anytime soon. You,
No,
but how do you want to be remembered when your career is over, or maybe not over? Just how do you want people to remember you? Because obviously, I'm seeing comments here. you've made an impact on. I think, like, look, other than maybe like Nystrom and all those guys, you are more famous than most of the other Islanders. I gotta say, if you went out and said, you know, Barbara Williams, yeah, sure. If you name some of the other Islanders through the years, people would be like, who? But because you had such an impact and you hit it at the right time.
And I'm still doing it year after year
Right.
after year.
So you're not resting on your laurels and say, well, I coached the Islanders in the 70s and 80s.
No,
You're still doing it.
I still, well, the rink was a surprise to me, having a rink named after me. But seeing my picture up on the screen on the UBS Center,
Yeah, that was amazing.
that was amazing to me. But I still set goals for myself and what I want to do. I will never retire. I don't even like that word. But I would skate like 3 days a week instead of 7. And I love motivational speaking. I like to go to colleges and women's groups and speak to them. That's important to me. I like motivational speaking.
Do you feel, though, that there could come a time when maybe you can't skate as much as you'd like to, but that you can still coach, maybe from the bench or something like
Yeah,
that?
sometimes I will get in the box and I'll say, look, just listen to me. But they're mainly advanced players. Beginner players,
You got to be on there,
I have to be on the ice right next
chasing
to
them around.
or touch the shoulders but advanced players, I can get off the ice. But that won't happen. I'll be skating until I'm 100.
I know you will.
I know that. And before we leave, before this is over, our interview, there's one thing I wanted to say.
Say it.
It's very important to all the parents listening to me. Every Saturday and Sunday, no one goes to church anymore. I don't know about the mosque or the synagogue, but because I'm Christian, they don't go to church. They don't know who God is. Because every game is Sunday morning or Saturday, and they don't go to church. When I trained in Omaha, Tranquility Rink was empty. I said, where is everybody? They're in church. What? They're in church? Yeah, we start like 12:30 when church is over. I was then completely shocked about it. But that's just my feeling. And you know what, too? All-star teams, I like what Omaha did. They take a coach from another team, and they pick the team
Really?
because they don't know the
Wow.
players.
Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing. I have never seen that, only in Omaha.
Well, it's interesting, and I'm glad you said that about church. But the schedules make it almost impossible because I remember when the little kids play early. So I remember there were some games where I'm driving to Pennsylvania at like 4 in the morning.
I know.
And how do you get the kid to church if they're playing Saturday and I'm talking travel players? How
I'll
do
tell you, every rink should have a piece of paper where the Christian churches, the Times, or the synagogue or mosque, whatever, they could hand it out to the parents. Because if you can't go Sunday morning, you could go Saturday night.
True.
So I believe rinks should do that. I really do. And the parents have to be more aware. We're in a very hard world right now. And their children are growing up in a hard world. And they need faith. They need faith in
That's
their
true.
lives. So, you parents out there that are listening to me, make that effort to get your child to church and know God or know Jesus or know Allah, but let him know someone.
It's funny. I've been around hockey, football, but you name it. I've never heard a coach say that.
Really.
And it's very important. Maybe they think it, but they don't say it.
It's very important to me. And I tell children, you say your prayers every night and thank God for your health and thank God for your parents. And some of them look at me and they just don't get it because the parents don't teach them. So the parents are failing in that
That's true.
respect.
I remember I was an altar boy, and I just see when I was a kid, went to Christ the King, and nowadays, you're right. If you look at the numbers of kids that go to church or faith-based education, few and far between. Listen, we got to end up. Listen, Barbara, it was fantastic to have you on the show.
It was so good.
After the movie comes out, I'd like to have you come back on and tell us all about it. And when you find out who's going to play you, let me know. So I'll make an announcement to my audience.
They're going to follow me around for a month or so. That's what I heard.
Well, you know how like sometimes this movie and they say to the actor, follow the person around because you got to learn the accent or you have to
Yeah.
learn their mannerisms.
Yes, and they're going to do
That's going to
that.
be they got to be
That'll be fun.
sweet and tough. That's how you are. But Barbara, thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on. I want to thank my audience. It's been a great show. The hour, I told you, the hour flew by. I got to say, this is probably my so far. I've been doing this a long time. This is probably my favorite interview. Not to insult my other guests, but this was a lot of fun and it ended on a very positive note. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Phil.
You take care. Have a good night and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.